And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
For Friday morning, IFR, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, northern Bering Sea here, right into the southwest interior and southwestern Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR for the Alaska Peninsula, all the way out to Shimei and Attu. And for the southeast coast, actually from the Wrangell Mountains, we've got IFR down into the northern Panhandle and then over toward the eastern border. And for the afternoon, IFR here along the North Gulf Coast down into the Gulf of Alaska, also along the western Alaska Range, and still some IFR up here along the Brooks Range and the southern North Slope. Marginal VFR, some VFR for the Panhandle, and IFR from about Adak westward there toward Shimei or Attu, and still an area of IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea right into Bristol Bay and extending up through the Bering Strait. And then for Saturday morning, IFR from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. Not too bad in the interior here, but IFR along the Alaska Range into Bristol Bay, and again right along the southwest coast and then offshore. And IFR for the Copper River Basin and most of the Panhandle. And then for the afternoon, improving here with marginal VFR for the southeast coast, marginal VFR for most of the Copper River Basin, eastern Kenai Peninsula area, and along the Alaska Range, VFR for the Susitna Valley, on down into Cook Inlet, Bristol Bay, much of the interior, still some IFR there for the Brooks Range, and a diminished area of IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea down to the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, and then more IFR at the next system pushing eastward here to about Adak. And for Anaktuvuk and Atigun, IFR for the day in the forecast for Friday. And Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR. Rainy though, marginal VFR, call it VFR for windy. And then back to marginal for Isabel, VFR from Antasta. And Tanita, marginal VFR. Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels here about 4,000 to 6,000 feet through interior Alaska from the Brooks Range southward, and including the southeast coast there, and about 2,000 feet here all the way down to the Aleutians. And for icing free out here over the central western Bering Sea, and most of the Aleutians there with heavier icing here across southern Alaska, considerable moderate rime icing through this area with diminished icing up to the north and over toward the southeast coast. And the jet stream showing northwest winds across the southern Bering Sea, cutting across the east central Aleutians and well south of the area here, leaving the interior in the light wind pattern at 33,000 feet. And at 9,000 feet, about the same thing, winds light and variable over interior Alaska, including the southeast coast, and a little brisker out here over the Aleutians, anywhere from 40 to 50 knots there out of mainly the northwest. And for 3,000 feet, west-northwest winds at about 45 knots across eastern Aleutians, western Alaska Peninsula. Light here across southern Alaska, turning east up to 45 knots there, say Point Lay down to Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. Light over the southern interior, light for the southeast coast. Looking at turbulence, due to a narrow band of easterly winds, could see some considerable moderate turbulence here for northern Cook Inlet, turning an arm into Prince William Sound area, as well as up here over the eastern Brooks Range. And considerable moderate turbulence also in the forecast for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians.